Welcome back. Tonight we're going to talk about consciousness. This is part 2 of consciousness, and we'll look at sleep, which is a little ironic, isn't it? Because probably something we'd all rather be doing right now than looking at this and learning about it, but for something that we want to do so often, it's kind of ironic how little we actually do it. And scientists ask the question, why do we sleep? Maybe a better question is, why are we awake? Why do humans choose to be awake so much? If we're healthy and we're able to eat and have protection and survive, wouldn't the best mode of survival be to just stay asleep most of the time? Humans, though, have a curiosity and a need to do and explore and know, and therefore we kind of push ourselves maybe more than we need to or more than we should sometimes. We have social pressures doing that as well. But tonight we'll look at consciousness and sleep especially. Now remember what we said in the introduction to this. The idea was that we're never really actually unconscious completely, that there's part of us that is conscious of the world around us while we are asleep. Sleep is very important to you and to your development. It's essential to younger people for sure because of the brain development. We're going to look more at some of the theories about why we sleep and what sleep is made up of, the sleep cycles, and a few sleep disorders. First, why do we sleep? Cats seem to have it correct, don't they? They seem to sleep quite a lot. Predators sleep a lot. Predators are asleep, but with kind of one eye open, aren't they? Because you're a predator, you're a hunter, you are on the prowl like a cat is. Even a house cat thinks they're on the prowl sometimes, even though they're not. They're just chasing after like lint or a ball or a piece of fur or something. But if you ever watch a cat sleep, it will go through some stages of sleep, but a whole lot of times their ears are moving and shifting based on the sound around them, which shows you that they're not unconscious. They're still conscious of what's going on around them. And cats can be awoken and startled pretty quickly, can't they? I mean, if they hear a noise, they're going to jump and move and be ready to pounce right away. It's kind of instinctive. In some ways, humans are like that too, but we've kind of trained ourselves to realize what noises we need to be listening for. So scientists do not know for sure why we sleep, why it occurs, and why we need it, which is interesting, but we don't know a whole lot, do we? There is a mechanism that causes us to fall asleep in the brain, really a couple different ones. We'll be looking at those, and we believe it has an evolutionary purpose as well. We slept when and during the night especially, because that's when it was the safest to do so in the dark. Yet the body does not do as much recuperation during sleep as we might think that it does. In fact, in some stages of sleep, you can see brain activity that is as focused and electric, if you will, as we are when we are awake, which is kind of stunning, isn't it? The brain is active during sleep, so we never really have a decreased level of activity. We have some in some certain stages, but not completely decreased. One theory says that sleep helps us to process and consolidate new memories. There's some scientific proof that's showing that from the hippocampus to other areas of the brain, we are transferring sort of an intermediate or short-term memory into a longer-term focus, so we could remember that better. They believe that might be what's happening during REM sleep, for example. And we'll look more at what REM is here in a few minutes. Our memory system is a psychological wonder, it really is. And several studies are saying that maybe sleep is the key to providing some maintenance for it. We have tested people with sleep and without sleep, And what we find is that people and students and people who are given words to study and to understand will generally perform much better whenever they are not going to be sleep deprived. If you get enough sleep, you'll wake up the next day and be able to recall things much better. It's likely that as well as fine-tuning our brains, our bodies use this opportunity to carry out a whole list of different things, like sort of like housekeeping tasks, like repairing damaged cells. And one thing is for certain, not only do we have to sleep, but it's good for the mind and the body. Sleep deprivation can do some serious damage. This is a rat who's been placed on top of a small little flower pot, probably much bigger than the top of this can. Around it is water, and so this rat is sitting in there, it can't get out, and it's going to want to go to sleep at a certain point. So it sits up on top of the flower pot, and it's unable to get into REM sleep, and we'll see that in a few minutes, where the body would completely relax. When you enter into REM sleep, the rat would fall off. If it stayed in REM sleep and didn't wake itself up and awaken from that, it would drown in the water. So this is a way that they've been able to test sleep deprivation in rats. Then they'd run it through a maze, one that they were able to do without sleep, one that they were able to accomplish with sleep much, much faster and better. So they were able to test sleep deprivation and the effects it has on rats, which is similar in many ways to the kinds of sleep deprivation that's been done to humans. We'll see a video in class 2 of a man, we'll see the video clip appear in the notes here in a little bit, who was a good test subject for this. But fatal familial insomnia is a genetic disorder and a disease that eventually results in someone's complete inability to sleep. They can go 6 to 9 months without sleep. You can talk about a painful existence. I think it would be very difficult to be alive. The video clip here is really good. It's about 10 minutes long, and it talks about this condition of fatal familial insomnia, which runs in a family. Today we have enough medical technology to determine whether or not you would have that gene. It's a gene that would show up sometimes for some members of a family, and they would have that gene, and they have a very strong likelihood of encountering this disease within their life. And then there are people who won't have it in the same family, brothers and sisters and so on. The video goes into some pretty good kind of a psychological play of sorts, where one of the girls of a parent, I think the parent dies of this, or grandparent, I'm not positive, I haven't watched this in a little while, but one of the persons decides to find out the truth. Do they have the gene or not? And the other person doesn't want to know and wants to just let her life go. And she wants to live her life. She doesn't want to have that haunting her, realizing that, sure, she might have the potential to gain this terrible disease, to have this disease and have a terrible ending to her life, but she also may never live long enough for that to happen. She's not going to worry about things that are out of her control. It's kind of an interesting thing with that alone. So let's look at sleep cycles. Sleep cycles, like we mentioned in the last set of notes on the introduction here, are like circadian rhythms, menstrual cycles, cycles of bowel movements, for example. Sleep isn't just a state of consciousness. Not to a psychologist, a sleeping person is sleep is just a state of consciousness, but to a psychologist, someone sleeping is not unconscious. Even when we're asleep, we are conscious, we're just less aware of ourselves and the world around us. Most studies show that a large number of Americans in general, and students specifically, and probably teachers, especially this year making all these videos, are sleep deprived. And researchers who use EEG machines to record brain activity and brain waves can see how active our brains are during sleep. That's given them a window into what's happening. And before this, people would look at someone sleeping and think, a psychologist or somebody studying the mind and behavior would say, what are we going to do? Wake them up and ask them how the sleep was going? You might get a dream out of them, but they never knew when they might be dreaming and when they wouldn't. There wasn't much to look at. With the modern medical technology that we have, including something simple like EEGs, which is measuring electrical current in the brain, we're able to see how active the brain is during sleep. So here's a long-term look at the sleep cycles at night. You see this from 22nd, 23rd hour, and then this is midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 a.m. 6 a.m. the awakening happens, although for me it's like closer to 5 o'clock. You have a morning peak of your rhythms here, your circadian 24-hour rhythms, around 8:30. And you'd say to yourself, no way, Duaz, I'm so tired then. I'm talking about the kind of biological processes that have to come forth to get you moving. Say, for example, you don't wake up at 6. Maybe your circadian rhythm, you're pushing that more towards 8 or 9. So that's going to push the rest of this down the road a little bit and shift it some. For some people it may happen, but this is most people. Stages of sleep are at the bottom here. Stages of wakefulness are at the top. And you can even see within stages of wakefulness, there are periods of less conscious awareness than others. And they seem to peak an awful lot like that of the sleep cycles. Very interesting. Here are the sleep cycles throughout the night. You can see we go from the awake stage through REM. We don't get into REM sleep at first. We go into stage 1, then stage 2, and then we start to enter stage 3. And this is sleep hours at the bottom within the first hour. And we're into stage 4 into the second hour. Some people call stage 3 and 4 deep sleep, and they call it just one singular stage, and there's some truth to that. As we build back up here at the top, where above really where stage 1 was, is REM sleep, and it's on there for a reason, because it's very similar to being awake. The brainwave patterns are very similar. That's also where we'll see some evidence of you experiencing more wakefulness. Now, you're not going to peak out here in REM sleep in hours 7 and then wake up in 8. It's not exactly like that, but you get an idea of the flow here. You'll see a better image of that in a little bit. Now, here's my son and me in periods of restful sleep for me and him. Now, obviously, the picture at the bottom left, I don't recommend sleeping with an infant. And I wasn't really asleep. I was just kind of laying there with him, trying to get him to sleep. And for an infant or a baby or even a younger person, you want to do whatever you can as a parent to make sure they can sleep. You do nothing that would try to wake them, because you want them to get as much sleep as possible. And sleep is absolutely vital for an infant. That's why they sleep so much. If you were to interrupt the flow of that, it could have kind of disastrous consequences. Some infants, and we'll learn about some kids later in the semester, who suffer from some psychological disorders like schizophrenia, will have incredibly restless sleep. And you'll get an idea of the kind of problems that causes them. Let's look at sleep stages again here. I might need some sleep. There are 5 identified stages of sleep, and as I mentioned before, sometimes you'll hear that as just 4 stages or 3 with REM. You'll see it as we go through here. It's about a 90 to 100 minute cycle to pass through all of these 5 stages. The brain's waves will change according to the sleep stage you are in, and you can see the waves there across the top of this graphic: stage 1, 3, 4, and then the 5. The 4 stages we know of. The first 4 here are called NREM, or non-REM sleep, and the 5th is REM sleep. And you can see the 5th stage looks an awful lot like the first stage in terms of brain waves. We go through 4 to 6 of these cycles per night. Obviously, if you are not sleeping for 8 hours, you will not go through 6 cycles. Let's look at stage 1. Hallucinations can occur. Vivid feelings of falling. If you think of the words falling asleep, they come from the phenomenon of, like, for example, this young man sitting here in his desk, he's leaning on his hand, he falls asleep. You have this sense of falling. It's not just because your body relaxes. There are times when you're even lying in bed where you feel a sensation of falling. It's just an interesting perspective. Your brain is falling asleep, and sometimes we have a feeling that we're falling. It's a transitional stage from wakeful consciousness to a more restful state. It lasts for about 1 to 5 minutes, and some people 20 minutes or 30 minutes. I would say insomnia is going to be pushing much more than 20 minutes. Most people who go to sleep studies or the sleep clinic and so upset about their insomnia find out that they really don't have insomnia. They're just impatient about falling asleep. Insomnia is when you go nights without sleep and cannot get to sleep for any reason, not even during the day. Very difficult time falling asleep and staying asleep. But for us persons who maybe are on the computer and studying or playing video games, you transition from that and go directly to sleep and try to go into the bedroom, go to sleep, is impossible to do. The light from the computer, the light from the room is messing with your circadian rhythms. You're probably staying awake longer than you should, especially if we look at the evolutionary patterns of humanity. We didn't have artificial light, and so you get to this point at night, it's 9:48. Most of the planet would probably be long asleep by then. Of course, we would wake up a little earlier in some cases too, especially on the weekends. Eyes will begin to roll slightly in your head as you're falling asleep. You'll have mostly theta waves that are high amplitude and low frequency. So that means they're pretty deep or slow, not the fast, brief, quick ones that we'll see here coming up in a little bit. The periods of alpha waves are similar to those present when awake, so theta and alpha. Stage 2, and you've got my 3 pets here at the top. You've got Milo. He's hard to see because he's black. He's laying there asleep, and right next to him here is Suki. And at the bottom, of course, my Griff. And I look over there, and he's kind of asleep right now. He's a little bit awake. He's looking over here at me like, what? Do you have some food for me? But he's sitting over there on his bed listening. Animals sleep a lot, and that's why we get jealous sometimes, don't we? But you can see their patterns of sleep and their sleep stages if you watch them. And you've probably seen eyes moving in a dog's head or even a cat's head, and that's REM sleep. All mammals go through sleep stages. Even dolphins have sleep stages where the brain will shut down and go into REM sleep. It's not really shutting down, you're just asleep. Dolphins do it by shutting off one side of the brain at a time, and it shuts down. One side will sleep, the other side will be more awake and conscious. When I say shut down, I don't mean shut down in the normal sense. Of course, we're just going to sleep. Your brain's really actually pretty awake. Stage 1 of sleep is the baseline. It's a part of the 90-minute sleep cycle, and it occupies about 45 to 60% of sleep, which is quite a lot if you think about it. Brain waves slow down dramatically. You'll have deeper stages of sleep. It's a deeper stage of sleep. Sleep spindles are going to occur, these bursts of neural activity and neural firings occurring. Some believe that may be involved with memory. It's not easy to wake up someone as they get into stage 2. And I think I've said stage 1. This is stage 2, so don't get confused there. Let me retrace my steps here. Stage 2 follows stage 1, and it is a time period we're going to spend 45 to 60 minutes, or 45 to 60% of your time in sleep. That makes more sense to me. When I first read that, I read it incorrectly. Your brain waves are slowing down dramatically. Deeper stage of sleep. So stage 2, if you're babysitting kids and you see the kids falling asleep and the parents have texted you and said, well, we're going to be a little bit late tonight, can you put him up to bed? And you look over and he's already asleep or she's asleep, and you go to pick them up and carry them up to bed, and they're just like totally dead asleep. You pick them up and carry them up there, and they never have any memory of it. They could be stage 2. If their eyes are moving quite a lot and they're completely limp and they're not resisting at all, they're definitely in REM sleep. If you pick up a child and they grip your shoulder and they're hanging on to you and they're still going to sleep, they're deeply asleep, probably stage 2 or potentially 3 or 4, but not in REM. They wouldn't have body functions if they were in REM. Let's look at 3 and 4. Now you're going to be getting, and it's a nice graphic at the bottom too, a chance to see that's 70 minutes into the cycle, and close to 90 minutes as it comes back out of that is the cycle. Stages 3 and 4 are delta or slow waves. This sleep may last 15 to 30 minutes. Now notice I put 3 and 4 together. Many people who study sleep have started to do this because they're so similar. Now stage 4 at the bottom, you'll see some deeper waves, the delta type waves, and these are the theta waves. However, and you need to know the waves. Be thinking about wavelengths. Beta, alpha, theta, delta. These are really important to know. Why are they important to know? Because they're going to match them up with these sleep stages. But anyway, this is, 15 to 30 minutes of really slow wave sleep because the brain activity is slowing down some. The theta rhythm of stage 2 is a much slower rhythm. That's the delta. And its height or amplitude of the waves will increase dramatically. So let's look at stage 3 and 4, and you see the sleepwalkers there down at the bottom of the screen. Those are pretty cool. And this is from the show Hannibal, where the main character, not Hannibal, but the detective or person who's working for the FBI to profile people and psychopaths. If you've ever seen the show on NBC, he finds himself awake. His dogs are in the window looking out at him like, "What are you doing, dude?" He's awake and standing on his roof. He suddenly wakes up. He was experiencing a period of sleepwalking. There's more to it in the show than that. But contrary to popular belief, delta sleep is really the deepest stage of sleep, and REM is not a deep stage of sleep. So delta, or this 4th stage of sleep, is the most restorative. You're getting the time period of that sleep is giving you like the potential to restore yourself. REM is going to be a little bit different. It's very important, but this is where maybe you're going to get your most restful feeling. If you're awoken in stage 2, 3, or 4, you're going to feel pretty groggy. It's delta sleep, and a sleep-deprived person, their brain craves this first and foremost. You're going to go into some REM sleep for certain if you've been sleep-deprived, but you're also probably going to spend a ton of time in stage 3 and 4, more than normal, if you haven't had enough sleep. In children, delta sleep can occupy about 40% of all sleep time. This is what makes children difficult to wake up, that dead asleep feeling most of the night. The REM stage is real interesting, rapid eye movement, and this is a very active stage of sleep. 20 to 25% of a normal night's sleep, your brain is very active. Your breathing, your heart rate, your brainwave, and activity all quicken, and vivid dreams can occur. We're going to talk about what those dreams might mean in the next presentation, and how to interpret that, and what kind of dream theories we can potentially look at and see what it means, but no one really knows for sure at this point. From REM, you can go back to stage 2. But the brain causes a decrease in muscle and tone and control. This is why we call this stage paradoxical sleep. It's impossible to sleepwalk in this stage. The body's immobile. This would take a rare REM disorder to do that, and some people have it, where they're acting out their dreams while they're asleep. Their body does not immobilize, and therefore they're acting things out and moving around and sometimes doing very violent things. REM is all about rapid eye movement. We're not really sure why it's doing this. It could be just the fact that you're trying to keep up with a dream that's lightning fast, faster than probably reality. If you've ever fallen asleep and had a dream and woken up and experienced kind of a loss of time, a sensation of you've been asleep a long time, but it's only been a few minutes on the clock, that's probably what this REM period of time would do for you, or you've had just a deep dream, which you can have in stage 2, 3, or 4, not just in 5. REM cycles decline during childhood and level off around 20% as you reach adulthood. And here's another couple ways to look at the stages. Stage 4 occurs early in the night, and REM periods get longer as the night progresses. So you'll see that on the right side, increasing REM, decreasing stage 4. I think there's potentially a good reason for this. REM is important and you need it, but it's not probably as restorative and as important as stage 4 is. So you're going to jump into that earlier in the night. Is that why it? I don't know. It's just how I remember it. So you got to think about it however you can. The sleep deprivation experiment with the story of Peter Tripp. If you did not watch this in class, you must watch this tonight, right now. Pause the video, go open the notes, go watch the story of Peter Tripp. He is the original tripper, and there's no doubt about that. When they say that man is tripping, they're talking about Peter Tripp. He went 8 days without sleep to raise money for the March of Dimes. The phenomenon that he experiences with hallucinations is absolutely a REM disorder come to life. He is having his body steal REM sleep from him while he is awake. He hallucinates and sees spiders and other things out there. It's a very interesting story. It's also interesting to think of what happened to Peter Tripp after this was all over with. He experienced some troubles with work, he experienced divorce in his life. Maybe Peter Tripp was forever changed for this experience. He reminds me a little bit of our friend who had the steel rod pass through his head. And was Phineas Gage ever really Phineas again? Not according to his friends. He was forever changed because of some differences in his brain structure. Is going through an 8-day period without sleep, and he was forcibly kept awake with drugs and other methods by psychologists and psychiatrists and scientists. Did this do irreparable damage to his brain? It's very possible. Younger persons have gone longer and experienced less side effects. So maybe their brain had a better sense of plasticity and recoverability. It's hard to tell. Here's another image here that can kind of show you the beta, alpha, theta, and delta waves. And if you think about these brain waves, these are good ways to kind of remember what they are like, okay, how they function. How much sleep do we need? 8 hours is the average, they say. I doubt most people get 8 hours of sleep a night. I would say, looking at the sleep patterns here, and let's see if we can pull this up here. If you're looking at this right here, if you don't get 4 hours of sleep, well, you're missing out on 2 longer period stretches of time of stage 4 sleep. And we know that's the most restorative. So I think at the minimum, you would need 4 hours. At least you'd go through 2 stage 4s and 2 periods of REM. You get into the 4th hour, and then the 5th hour, you're getting an extra dose of REM. And then, look, you don't even get into stage 3 after that. You're staying up there around 1 and 2 until the 7th and 8th hours of sleep. But you're still going to experience a little bit more REM as you're going through the night. So I think it's better if you get 8 hours of sleep. There's some scientific evidence that some people believe that left to their own devices, early Paleolithic humans did not sleep 8 hours a night. They slept 4-hour periods of time, and in the middle of the night they got up for some bursts of activity. What kind of bursts of activity those were, it's hard to tell. Did it have to do with the need to create more humans? Potentially. Did it have to do with watching over their families and their people? That might also be part of it too. Hard to tell. But it's important to know that basically the recommended dose of sleep each night is about 8 hours. How do you feel when you don't get enough sleep? And my tea got messed up there. Sorry about that. Well, most of us feel pretty groggy, don't we? 25 years of your life is spent sleeping. But don't we feel like we need more? It's pretty crazy. I'm going to skip that chart. I don't even know if it makes any sense. We used to look at that for a while in class, and I'll just forget it now. Can you make up for lost sleep in one night? Does cramming work? And this is functionally important for our course, for your high school career, and definitely into college, where people are going to try to cram all this information at the last minute. Just take my advice. In college, you're going to have this feeling like you're doing great. It's wonderful. You have all A's. It's not even Thanksgiving yet. You haven't even taken midterms yet. When you take midterms and you have all these tests and projects and papers due at the same time, you'll sense what cramming really is. You have got to have a calendar. You've got to look ahead. You've got to plan these things out and do a little bit of work every day on each one of your classes, and take it from somebody who didn't always do that. It is not the easiest way to go. What we know about cramming is when you cram information into your brain the night before the test, you may remember some of it for the next day. But your performance in your brain activity is not going to be as sharp as it needs to be. There's no really other way to say it other than I don't know that trading out sleep for cramming is actually a good trade-off. You might be better off, or you definitely be better off studying in smaller doses over weeks of time for a test rather than just one night or 2 nights in a row. So can you make up for lost sleep? No, you really can't. What happens to your body? It takes a long time to recover. And in college, you'll usually have tests like finals that are going to run all week long. It can be pretty difficult. Let's talk about insomnia and then some other sleep disorders. This is the recurring problem of falling asleep and trying to stay asleep, and it's a problem. So not once in a while I'm having trouble sleeping because I have a big test tomorrow and I crammed the night before, or now I'm restless or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about deep insomnia, and it's not defined by the number of hours you sleep every night, because you could get 8 hours of sleep, but you could get that sleep in 1 single hour doses and be reawoken each hour. As you've seen with the sleep cycles, that would not be a good thing. Now, can you imagine if you have trouble sleeping and you wake up every hour having to go back to sleep each hour and pass through these sleep stages again, and if you struggle with just falling asleep and then you're having to keep falling asleep all night, that has got to be a problem. Narcolepsy is a sleep disorder, and the good example of it is down there at the bottom right of the corner of the screen. And it's a person who's watching the news. He falls asleep on the left. That's not narcolepsy. It could be, but it's not typically narcolepsy. What is narcolepsy? You're watching the news, and the guy who is doing the news, the anchor man, falls asleep, his head hits the table, and he's out like a light. That is narcolepsy. So uncontrollable sleep attacks. Some people who have narcolepsy, they fall asleep while driving, and boom, they're completely out and asleep. That's when they sometimes find that they have narcolepsy. Some certain things can bring it on and trigger it, but on the whole, a narcoleptic person is going to struggle with holding down a job and having a normal life. They lapse into REM sleep directly. So this can happen at moments of stress, moments of joy, exhilaration, boom, REM sleep. Can you even imagine? It's got to be very, very difficult to live with. It is excessive sleepiness because you're never really going through the sleep stages correctly. It's extremely unpredictable and very uncontrolled. This is the story of Skeeter the narcoleptic dog. I am sure we'll see it in class, but if we haven't, check that out. It's sad, it's funny in a way, because you'll be like, what the heck? But it's a true story of a dog who has narcolepsy, and it is a big issue for this dog. I feel for this dog. It makes me almost cry every time I watch it. It's so sad, but poor Skeeter, you know? But we all have our issues, so Skeeter's doing the best he can, I guess. Sleep apnea. This is typically men who are a bit heavier, especially up here in the neck and the upper chest area. When there is pressure put on the trachea, the tongue slides to the back, to the uvula, and the soft palate moves, nasal passages are blocked, and the throat is blocked. The top graphic there is perfect. Breathing resumes with a gasp. So if someone you're concerned about may have sleep apnea, if they're like that waking up, and then they're going to go through the same cycle again, notice how their head is flat on the bed. And most people who have sleep apnea sleep on their backs. Not a recommended sleeping position. You should sleep on your side. The best side for sleep is right or left. It's sleeping on your right side because your heart is kind of center left. So it's right here. If you're sleeping on your right side, which is over here, I don't know. I'm looking at my mirror image on the screen. I get confused. You'd want to sleep on your right side most of the time. Of course, you can't control this. Once you go to sleep, you're probably going to move around a little bit. But I kind of trained myself to try to sleep on my side because I had some neck issues and problems with football. I use a pillow to kind of cushion myself, to keep myself upright, and to press against it some to keep myself on my side. Of course, now with MS, it's a whole nother story. I'm not even going to get into my sleeping problems with that. Sleep disorder is characterized by temporary cessations or stopping of breathing, and that's during sleep, and that's not good. Consequently, you're going to have momentary reawakenings. You could have a person slowly damaging their brain because they're not getting enough oxygen to it. These folks will wake up and they don't really realize that they haven't had a good night's sleep. They don't feel rested, so they're obviously having trouble. They're very sleepy the next day, but they're not sure why. This video, in the notes, you'll watch it. It'll give you a really good sense of what causes sleep apnea. Let's look at night terrors pretty quickly. I know this is terrifying, but this is very odd. This is not like you wake up and you've had a bad dream and you tell somebody about it and you're really disturbed. This is a sleep disorder characterized by high arousal and an appearance of being terrified. They're not really terrified, they're dreaming. It occurs in stage 4 or non-REM, and they're often not remembered by the person. They have no idea that they're doing it, and we had Aiden doing this for probably 6 months or so to a year periodically, and we were just scared to death. What in the world's going on? And I think, if I remember correctly, we just bring him down and put him in front of the TV and have SpongeBob in there for him, and then he'd kind of wake up enough or become conscious enough that he would pass through this night terror. But in the same room, and you'd shake them and you'd say, it's okay, relax, it's okay. You'd try to reason with them. Nothing would comfort them. They would just continue to cry and scream. It's a very strange disorder. Fever, a little bit of sickness, strange sleeping patterns, some stress can bring these on, but sometimes they just happen. Nobody really knows why. And it's a stage most students and young people pass through and then they're done with. And most older people don't have night terrors anymore. Sleepwalking or somnambulism is when a sleepwalking person has this disorder. About 10% of all humans do this at least once in their lives. Sleepwalking occurs during deep non-REM sleep. I think I said today it was stage 2, and I was totally wrong if I said that in class, so just double check me. I make mistakes, but I was thinking about that today as I was sitting here. Stage 3 or stage 4 of sleep is the time that you'd have this really deep non-REM sleep. Why does it have to be non-REM? Think about it now. What are you doing? You're sleepwalking. In REM sleep, you're going to be having that paradoxical sleep where the brain's wide awake. It's functioning not wide awake, but it's having high energy levels and high electrical current brainwaves similar to being awake. So it's kind of an energized brain, yet the body is immobilized in REM sleep. Kind of the opposite thing is happening here. Your body is kind of waking up and moving about. You may be dreaming and you're walking through your dream. My son will come down and do this sometimes, usually at the beginning of school, or we'll come off a break or something. We've had Thanksgiving break or a few days off or something, and he'll have some strange nights where he'll stay up too late, and then he'll go back to school. He'll get these really weird times where he'll come down and talk to us, and we are just assuming that he hasn't really slept at all. He was just upstairs rolling around, and he's come down to I don't know, try not to go to sleep or whatever, to try to stay up. Meanwhile, he's completely asleep. He won't even remember this the next day. Ends up walking back upstairs and he's fine. But sleepwalking can be very dangerous, and you want to stop someone from hurting themselves. Wake them up if you must, but just get them back into bed and try to keep them there. Because if you have a sleepwalker who's going to walk down the stairs, most of the time people can manage for themselves because they know their house well enough. But what if there's an object on the stairs that they're not aware of, and it's very odd and they wouldn't expect it to be there, like a skateboard or something? You know, they could end up bashing their head against the stairs and killing themselves or being injured very badly. Sleepwalking can be kind of dangerous in that way. Do not believe the myth and the urban legend that if you wake someone who's sleepwalking, they will become a zombie or brain dead. That doesn't happen. Far worse for somebody to not be aroused and then get injured. Ambulation, walking or moving about, occurs during sleep. This is usually pre-puberty or prepubescent children. Difficulty in arousing the patient and amnesia will follow the episode. They have no idea that they sleptwalked. Episodes occur during the first third of the sleep episode. The polysomnographic monitoring demonstrates that they're the onset of episode of stage 3 or 4. They will have some fatigue, which is not the same as drowsiness, some stress and anxiety potentially, but sleepwalking altogether is not completely harmful as long as they don't hurt themselves. And it's typically a phase or a stage or something that they won't experience much more after this one time. So that is what you need to know about sleep and sleep stages. Sleep can be one of the areas where you'd see tested the most on the AP test. And why is that? We have the ability now to look at brain waves and know some information about the stages. It's much more scientific than, say, consciousness, which we have difficulty even agreeing about what consciousness is at what different levels that those are. Consciousness, when it comes to sleep, we have much more solid footing on. So you'll see that on the AP test a little bit more. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Until next time, don't forget to be